Get ready for that one question. You know how we do it. Where do we go from here? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Where do we go from here, right? Well, today we're going to our guest, Sam Henninger. Give him a round of applause.
Hey,
All right, so I'm extremely excited for you to be here. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we love it when you're interactive for our viewers, our listeners. You can always send questions in to myself or even directly to Sam. But for our viewers, please throw all of your comments below and your questions, anything like that. Sam, let's start off by getting to know a little bit about you, maybe your wife, your life. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
sure. Yeah, and thanks again for having me, Lion. So, Miranda and I, we've known each other for 15 years now. That's more than half my life right now. But we're coming up on 6 years of marriage, and we've learned a lot about each other and about how that works. But I grew up near DC in Northern Virginia, and got both my bachelor's and my master's out in Utah. That's where some of my family comes from. And right now we're actually living in Northwest Arkansas. So that's actually where Miranda grew up from. I grew up in. And so for us, we got two kids, and we're building this business, hen house coaching, just helping other people like us who have those similar aspirations of having a strong marriage, a strong family, but also that independence to grow their business and make that impact that they want, all without that falling apart. Because we see so many examples of people thinking they have to pick one or the other, and I think we can do a lot better than that.
Yeah, that is so interesting. First off, the places you live. I'm gonna come back to what you just said, but DC to Utah to Arkan, I call it Arkansas, but
Yeah,
Arkansas.
that's
Okay,
that's how we know you're not from there.
yeah. So that is such a learning curve, I would say, from cultural aspects, because each coast, each city state has its own identity. But that is amazing. And what's crazy is except Arkansas, I've actually lived in both of those places,
Oh,
Utah
okay.
and in DC. Utah was, believe it or not, it was very beautiful for me. Living in the mountains, I used to live in South Valley, Jordan, many moons
Okay.
ago, something like that. Lodi, Lehigh area, somewhere around there. But I was younger. So that was very interesting. But I would love to get back into the aspect of what you were talking about building the businesses together. And here's my take on that. Because I always talk about when we come up in life, we don't have that roadmap. So it's kind of like you said, we don't have a manual. So we start the business together. And my wife and I, we run businesses together as well. So this is very interesting to me because no one told us you can't have both, right? Like you said, you start to think I have to choose one, but you just have to find what works for you. So if you're breaking it down to some of the listeners, what do you think? Where you tell them to start at? Even if they're, let's say they don't have a business yet, they're just saying, "Honey, let's work together. We live together, but now I want us to work together." Where do you tell them to start?
Yeah. So here's the thing: the more we've talked to people in our similar life path, the more we've seen that there are going to be some people who want to, some couples who want to build their business together. They both want to be active in it. There's a lot more actually who there's just the one entrepreneur, and then the non-entrepreneur spouse who basically pulls the brakes on everything all the time because they're not sure. They're a little bit afraid. Usually the entrepreneur type is the dreamer and ready to take risks when the other side isn't so much, or they just haven't been convinced yet. And so I want to first say we we are talking. I mean, this is Miranda and I's experience. Like, we are active in the business together. But if you're the non-entrepreneur in a couple and you're married to an entrepreneur, you're still in it. So there's still a lot for us to talk about with you. Even if you're not actively contributing to the business, you're still actively contributing to the relationship, which supports the business. So there's a lot here for you. I think I'd say it really comes down to you got to have those clear conversations. And for the dreamer, for the entrepreneur, the idea guy or girl, you got to be willing to have two separate times. There's a time for having all those ideas, for dreaming up what we want our life to be. But then there's also the time to sort of prune all those ideas down to the one that you're actually going to stick to. And I think often as couples, you get those phases of conversations mixed up. So I could be drumming up all these ideas, all these dreams of how we want this thing to grow or how what we want it to turn into. But if the conversation I'm getting back is, yeah, but what about this? What about that? And that's never going to work. Then you're having two different conversations at the same time, and it just turns to frustration. So that'd be the first thing I talk about is let's have one conversation at a time.
Yes, and this it's breaking it down so much that it's reminding me, because sometimes we get going if you've already established a business with you and your spouse or your partner, and we forget how it felt when we first started, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you were speaking on that, I am, and still I was, and I still am the dreamer. I'm the one that, babe, this idea. And my wife, she's very bills. She's the accountant, I
Mm-hmm.
call it. This is right
Mm-hmm.
when we were starting that. But what about this? But it was never, and I love her to death, because it was never in a way that discouraged me, but it was more of, hey, let's be realistic about it. And I love showing this because you just reminded me of that. I have this book, and it's called a hatch book, kind of like an egg. And what it does, it guides me. I finished one of these, and this is my second one that I've started. And basically, what it does, it tells me to write any idea I have about a dream, a t-shirt business, whatever. Then it starts to tell me to draw it out. It helps me refine if that's going to be a viable little side business or something like that. And so this has helped me tremendously. And to have that partner, like you were saying, help you, because when you, each one of us has individual strengths as a couple. And I think we have to learn how to adjust one of our strengths without maybe knocking down, if I'm kind of putting that in the right way, the other person. Is there anything that you can maybe talk about, like the strengths of the individuals and then helping combine them together?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that think is really interesting is learning about personality. For me, I mean, that's I got my bachelor's in psychology, and that's something that we touch on a good amount, and I've learned a lot of my own. The thing is that we're all built a little different, and our lives help form how we express our strengths or how we pursue the things we want. But one thing I really appreciate is having an assessment or something that can help us create a common language of what our strengths might be as individuals. Because what I've seen often in my own marriage as well as in others is that even if you have the same goal, you're not going to approach that goal the same way. And so if you look over to your spouse and you see that they're going about reaching that goal supposedly, but in a way that it doesn't make sense to you, or it seems like you're getting in my way of doing it my way, then you start to butt heads. And so the thing that I think is most important is having something that you can refer to where it's like, oh, wait, I understand now why you're doing it that way and how it actually helps me because you're covering my butt by taking care of those things. And as long as we aren't thinking that we're butting heads or getting in each other's way, then we're actually progressing together.
Man, ladies and gentlemen, dimes are being dropped right here, and it is like literally making me feel, because everything you're saying is, and I still do it myself occasionally. I am that one that felt sometimes, oh, it should be done like this, right? And I had to relearn that there's other ways to do it. Just
Mm,
because I'm not doing it that way doesn't mean it can't get done correctly, or the way they're doing isn't correct. And as we've learned, I've learned systems, feel, felt, found, to approach my partner to explain some ways. And then they will tell me, well, hey, I think it's this way. I'm like, oh, that does make sense. It doesn't have to be
Mm,
what I think is my way. So, because one of the scary things I think could happen if you're a spouse or partner or someone who's wanting to go into business together, build a dream together, is you feel it could affect your relationship. You feel it could damage it or something like that. Hey, Oscar, we just had a viewer just pop up on the screen. How you doing, Oscar Munez, out in Texas? He's a listener that we absolutely love. But can you touch on the fear, possibly, of spouses saying, you know what, this might wreck our relationship if we go in this together?
yeah. So, an experience I saw a lot during my time in my MBA program was, so I went into that degree program looking to just get better as a business owner. Like, I wanted to learn just how everything worked together, and so that I could build my own thing. What I saw, on the contrary, for most of my classmates was entrepreneurship is risky, and so they hear the word risk and they're like, well, that's not going to fly, either in their own heart, or they know that their spouse is not going to be game for that. And so there's just this fear of people that otherwise would go into business for themselves. They just play small because they don't want to rock the boat. And I think a big reason for that is we see so many examples. I mean, think of think of how many billionaires aren't married anymore, or have a handful of women they've had children from. It's for somebody who is family oriented, believes in marriage, and wants that in their life. They can find it pretty hard to find good examples of people that are making as big an impact as they want, but also staying married to the person that they married. And so I think for that, the fear comes when they don't see a way forward. And I think that's what Miranda and I are trying to help people see.
Yeah, because I can also see that leading into the household, because the roles, it could be different. So when I came up, there was this unspoken role kind of thing. The guy does the grass cutting or outside work, the wife inside work. And even without directly teaching our children or teaching me at that time, it was implied. So I started thinking that was the way it was supposed to be. But maybe, you know, in the roles of the business, that might be reversed. So, man, I can see that being tough on someone's psyche as well. Is there any kind of thing you can talk to about maybe roles in the business and the house and so forth?
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's a lot of things that we just take on ourselves, that we see others do, we see the previous generation do, and we just accept it as how that's how I'm supposed to be. We even have friends and family reinforce that over time. Um, but I think, especially after the pandemic and people starting to work from home, losing their jobs, whatever, that all this change has happened. And I think it's helped people wake up a bit to see that there's actually a lot more to choose from. There's a lot more different ways we can get things done and still have a traditional family setup where the man is the man and the woman is the woman, which I think it can be a very powerful thing, and healthy for a relationship. So I think really what it comes down to is taking an honest look at what are all the things that need to get done in the house, with the kids, in the business. What are all the things that need to get done to grow, to be happy, to be healthy? Who does that best? Each particular thing. Let's just go one, like go down the line. Who does that best? Okay. Next thing, go down the line. Who wants to do that most? Now, there's probably going to be a lot of things that no one would rather be the one to do it, but it comes down to, can I tolerate this, or does this really sap all my energy to do this? I know for me, setting up doctor's appointments, things like that. That just really drains me. But for Miranda, it's not like it boosts or anything, but it doesn't affect her negatively nearly as much as it does me. And so
Yeah.
you start to have these conversations about who does it best, who does it affect negatively the least, or who does it best, or who wants it the most. And then you can start to organize your roles that actually play and give you energy throughout the day.
Man, this is so heartfelt because it is so true. And I keep using the word unlearn, rewire my brain because it is truly something I had to work on. Because when I started dating my wife and we started learning each other, I had that mentality of, yes, this is the role and this is how it should be. And then I started really learning about love language and how I need to
Mhm.
express it and show it. And so there would be times where I would let her know, hey, if you went to get the groceries, let me bring them in the house, right? Because I'm expressing my love. You just made that effort. You don't need to be bringing in bags of groceries. If you cook, then I want to wash the dishes, right? So I'm want to be a part and help you out. So that was really great. And then within our business, our roles are semi reversed in that. But I think, and this is only my opinion, I'm not a doctor or psychologist, anything like that. Although I did play one on TV one time, but that doesn't certify me for anything.
Nice.
I think for men, it's pride. That word, it's great, but it can be harmful, right? I'm a man. I lose my pride. And I find myself occasionally falling back into that, but I have to remind myself what's more important, my relationship with my family, my growth versus just me being right and so forth. And I think that can really be good. So it's almost like I'm resetting my brain or something and resetting the boundaries or even setting boundaries. I know that has to be something that is defined in that relationship. What would you say about that?
Yeah, man, you're bringing up so many good thoughts. So, what I'd say, so let me start with the idea of like the role of a man is and the unwillingness to maybe branch out from that, or rearrange things that fits to you as a couple, being linked to pride. Um, for me, in my experience, which I think was in some ways similar to yours, I think a lot of it boils down to fear, and a lot of times anger comes from fear. And so when we have these emotions, and usually guys, like, we don't have a lot of words to express how we feel. We just haven't taken the time to learn those words, to learn that vocabulary. And so it usually comes out frustrated or angry or stubborn, right? It's just unwilling to bow down, or not even that, but just change our mind. And look, I'm a believer of Jesus. I take him as my example in life, and I think it's really interesting to know that the example he gave in the scriptures was that he created everything. He's the most powerful of all, but he was also the most humble. And I think in a way we can access that power by being humble, by saying like, I don't know everything. And it's not it's not me saying that I can't protect you. It's not me saying I can't provide, to say I don't know everything. I need help figuring it out. I think in a lot of ways, a healthy woman, a healthy wife who sees that would definitely be uh, able and willing to help her guy through that experience.
Goodness, man, you're like hitting all of the keys here, and we are finding ways. And I think that's the ultimate thing, right? Even like in parenting, there is no roadmap. Each generation has to learn a new different way, right? I remember hearing these stories my parents would tell me. I walked to school backwards on mountain in the snow, and and now we're learning it different because my wife and all of our older kids are out the home. So we're not to give away our age or anything, but I guess that did a little bit. But now we're relearning. She's like, what do I do? I empty nest in a sense. We still have a young
Mm,
one, but I don't have to go to 3, 4 games for basketball, or I get to be me a little bit, plus run a business. So it's all relearning and finding those roles. So I'm really, really loving this. And if people want to find a little bit more about what you and your wife do, and I've been placing up on the screen for our viewers some of the places they can find you, but let our listeners who know, where can they find you at? What can you help them with if they're looking for that?
sure. Yeah. So the place where we're most active right now is Facebook. You can see the kind of things I'm up to on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. That's more of our family sort of deal. We do some posts there as well, but on Facebook, that's where I'm making posts. I'm giving you guys something to think about every week, almost every day. But more than that, if you choose to connect with me on Facebook, we also have a group where we have people just like you, couples that are in business some way, somehow, that want to make sure that the marriage stays strong and even helps build the business rather than the business tearing down the marriage. So connect with me on Facebook, then we'll get you in the group if you'd like, and go from there. But the thing that Miranda and I find most powerful is, so I got a bachelor's in psychology, and it wasn't until like a couple years later after I graduated that I realized just how little that degree taught me about the field of psychology. And so I've been just diving deep the last few years and talking to Miranda, and we've been learning together about why do we think so differently? Why do some things get me jazzed up about my life while it doesn't for her? And I think so much of it, I mean, look, I'm not about stereotypes or painting people with a broad brush or putting them into a corner, but there are some of these common experiences that we as men experience that women don't, and women experience certain things that men don't. And so there are stories in our lives that can go either way. Miranda and I help people craft their own stories and see how it fits these frameworks, these archetypes that we see in all these other ones. We break it down for them and help them see, oh, this is where I get my fulfillment. And this is
Yeah.
how I can help my spouse get theirs.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, for the listeners out there, I'm going to kind of drop where he stated net, because if you're not viewing it, you won't see it. But his Facebook is Sam, Sam dot Henninger, Heninger. And if you Google it, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find some of the other social media links, because they're mostly all with the name
Yeah.
reference.
I have it all on
Um,
my Facebook bio, so you can connect with
yeah.
me everywhere
So
from
just
there.
go to Facebook, and then everything else is there for them.
Yep.
Right? So do you feel if there's anything we missed, anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover? Now we're starting to head towards that wrap up portion. What else would you like to end this on to say and let the
Sure.
people know?
Yeah. I just want to share with whoever ends up watching or listening, I want to give you some encouragement that no matter where you are in life, maybe you're not entrepreneurial at all, um, but maybe you are married and you want that to get better. Maybe it's even good right now. You just want to tweak it a bit, make it maximize it. I want to tell you that you can have the things you want in life, and you can have a marriage that works for you. You can have those strong relationships with your kids. You can have the time and the resources to afford that time to be with the people who matter most to you. And I think there's a lot of people out there setting bad examples, and you just have to be willing to find those voices who work for you and have your best interest in mind. I mean, the things we do for our clients, it's pretty cool because we'll get into what they're doing. It's not therapy. We're not getting too deep. We're not getting too heavy on this stuff. That's not what we're there for. But we can be there and we can give you that pep talk. We can give you that kick in the pants. And sometimes that's just what somebody needs. They just need a little bit of information and a little bit of encouragement. And that's how they get to that next level of really being satisfied in their marriage and really feeling some positive momentum in their business, even in just their job or whatever you're doing. So I just want to say all this applies, and I truly believe in the power of marriage, and I think it's going to be what leads healthy families through this next generation, because this is what we need as the life gets crazier, as the world gets crazier.
Yeah. I, I I'm not going to say anything else, ladies and gentlemen. That right there summed it all up. Sam, I'm just asking you to hold up for 1 second. I will go ahead and start the wrap up portion and get some of these bill payers by our sponsors. So just stay
Hmm.
with me for 1 second, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another great episode of Just One Question. As we always say, our goal here is simply to inspire and educate you about anything in life. And I hope today you walk away with some inspiration, some knowledge. If you're working towards maybe starting a business for yourself, get in touch with Sam and his wife, Miranda. They can guide you and help you in that way. Or even if they can't directly themselves, I'm sure they can maybe point you in the right direction. So we appreciate you for listening as always. And as I always say to you, remember to live while you're alive.